Today is Chabad of Melbourne's business lunch. We are privileged to have the world-acclaimed, world-renowned Rabbi Dr. Emanuel Schochet. Rabbi Emanuel Schochet has authored some 30 books and penned many articles on critical Jewish law. He's lectured to audiences across the globe and has debated amongst many different groups across the globe. He served as a professor of philosophy at Humber College for over 25 years, and he's taught bioethics at the School of Medicine, and currently resides at the Beth Joseph Congregation in Toronto, Canada. Today's topic: the 20th century, does Jewish law have a place in the corporate world? Rabbi Dr. Emanuel Schochet.
Thank you. My first trip to Australia. This is the first time I'm downtown. No one to show it to me. Topic. Does Jewish law have a place in the corporate world? Frankly, to be truthful, I don't know what that means. I'll just guess what I think it might mean, or should mean, and try to say a few words about that. When we discuss any subject, we first of all have to define the topic. What do you mean? You have several terms. 21st century, Jewish law, corporate world. You have to define each of these terms before you can really talk about them. So we may have different understandings about all of these. So I can only talk from more or less my perspective. 21st century would suggest that we live today in a different world. 21st century is different than the 20th century, is different than the 19th century, etc., suggesting there is some kind of a change. And how do we cope, or how do we relate, or how do we interpret it in this present context? Jewish law. Jewish law would suggest, that you have different codes of law. One of them is Jewish law, then you have secular law. Each country has its own constitution, each country has its own code of laws. So Jewish law would seem to be one of these options, one of these alternatives for us. Corporate world, I still don't know what that means. Sure, I know what the corporation means, and business means, etc., but it has always been a corporate world. But we'll see. We'll explain to me how it is. When we talk about different systems of law, we really have to distinguish between two basic types, especially with contrast to your Jewish law, which would be in contrast to other systems. Is Jewish law just another form, another code? The answer to that is obviously no. We talk about the Jewish law, what we really are talking about is law as perceived in Judaism, and specifically what Judaism regards as the laws of Judaism. What are laws in general? Laws in general, you have every country, as I said before, has its own legal code. And these legal codes, there's really nothing absolute about them. They're completely altogether relative, subjective. But no two countries have the same types of laws. Generally, basically, but still each society forms its own. How does law come into being in the first place? How did law, the whole concept of law, evolve? In a natural state, without society, there is no such thing as law. Well, there's a law, maybe called the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle is survival of the fittest, dog eat your dog. Each one has its own self-interest. And this is the basic state of nature, that human beings are essentially no different than animals. And just as the animals in the jungle do whatever they please, try to get whatever they can, survival of the fittest, so it is with human beings as well. The only thing is that human beings have reason. Human beings have intellect. The law of the jungle is not something that we could possibly survive from. It's survival of the fittest. It's probably a dog. might makes right. That makes life, certainly on the human level, where I would like to enjoy my existence and to enjoy my property and to enjoy my liberty and to be free to act, pursue my happiness and joy, belong to German business. And that is essentially how laws came to be formed as a reaction. How did laws start? In philosophy, this is called social contact. People see that we all live in a jungle, everybody doing his own thing. And since life becomes untenable and impossible that way, so we look for a way out. Can we circumvent that system? The only way you can do so is if people get together and try to form what is called a society. What is a society? That you have people who have a common interest, and the most basic common interest is, of course, survival. And not just survival, but also survival in a way that has certain basic human comforts, that I do not have to turn back to see if somebody is following me, trying to attack me, trying to take over, the way it happens in the jungle. So therefore, if we have this pursuit of survival in a more or less safe way, let's see if we can get together and form what is known as social contact. We have common interests as human beings, which our minds or intelligence dictates. The most basic interests are, of course, simply survival. And not just survival in terms of my life, but also survival in the sense of that whatever I have worked for, whatever I've acquired, should be more or less protected. So life, property, more or less freedom, and should be able to continue on. People who share that interest will get together and say, let's move in together. By nature, by natural law, I have the right to do anything I please, the same as animals do. If my interests dictate I should kill you, rob you, nothing wrong with it. To this day I have not come up yet with a valid, legitimate argument that should show me and prove to me that murder or stealing or anything of these things is intrinsically wrong. It's impractical. But no one can prove to me that murder is morally or intrinsically wrong on its own. Certainly not in the state of nature. But none of us wants to be killed. None of us wants to be robbed. Every one of us wants to enjoy the labor, the fruits of my labor, and whatever I have. Since we all have that basic desire, so therefore let's get together and make a deal. You don't want to be killed, I want to be killed. So I'll make a deal with you, I'm not going to kill you. I promise not to kill you, provided you promise to give me the same thing. Then we find other people, and therefore we form a society, a certain area, and set boundaries to it, and whoever wants to live in this group, to enjoy the benefits of this group, has to abide with these laws. These laws, they are very basic, very fundamental. As time progresses, we become more ambitious, we can see that we can make life easier for one another, we can make it more profitable, so we introduce ever more restrictions, in which each and every one of us technically is surrendering his natural right to do whatever you feel like doing. Why should I surrender these rights, these natural rights I have? Because I get something in return, which is worth it. Same as when you buy something in the store, no one wants to lose his or her money, no one wants your property to be destroyed. So I give you my money on condition that I get something in return which is worth to be more than what that is I give you. That's the only reason why I see the price is too high. My money is worth more to me than the object, even though I really want this object. While other people may say, you know, I want this object so much more than my money, so I'm even willing to pay a very high price for it. So these are the so-called compacts that we make with one another. This is how we more or less develop laws. After a while, somehow these laws assume an identity of their own. And very often we identify these laws with a new concept, an altogether novel concept, which is called morality or ethics. And we start introducing business ethics, medical ethics, social ethics, what have you. Technically, that's a misnomer. There's no mistake. Ethics, certainly the way we devise them, what we call ethics, like mentioned before, murder. Very often, class in ethics, but I start my course always by asking the students, can somebody name me something which is really unethical, really immoral, really evil, really bad? All the hands go up, and everybody unanimous, murder. Very good, very easy course. See? Then my next question is, can anybody tell me what is wrong with murder? And how can you ask such a stupid question? You have no right to take somebody else's life. How would you like if your life is taken? One thing, my life is taken, frankly, I don't care. I'm dead, but it doesn't make it. Do I want to shorten my life? No, not necessarily. But just because I don't like it, what does that got to do with it? Just because I don't like to be wronged, what does that got to do with it? You have here all kinds of goodies on the table. I see here some chocolate cookies and so on. Guess what? I don't like chocolate. I was born and raised in Switzerland. I don't like chocolate. Betrayed my heritage. Now, when I say I don't like chocolate and I don't like to be murdered, are these the same statements? Technically, yes, exactly the same statement. Just because I don't like it does not mean that the chocolate is bad. Most of you do like the chocolate. Some of you are chocoholics. I'll give you the right arm. But that's a personal preference, that's a personal like or a personal dislike in my case. So likewise, what about murder? Because I don't like being murdered, that does not make it evil. That murder, how shall I put it, the legality of murder would be inconvenient. That doesn't make it immoral. It's certainly highly impractical. We cannot survive if murder is allowed, because no one knows who is working behind me, who is trying to chase me, and what have you. So let's not confuse legality with morality. When we talk about morality, this has been an issue, a problem that has troubled mankind from day one. All the philosophers, going back 2,500, 3,000 years, have been struggling with the problem, what is ethical, what is moral? To try to find a standard that we can pretty much all agree upon. They have tried for the past 2,500, 3,000 years, and guess what? They have not come up with an answer. They have come up with lots of theories, going to the pre-Socratics and Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and in every generation, literally in every generation, every year for that matter. Professors have nothing else to do, so they keep writing books. And they present very reasonable arguments, but each one can be shut down on logical grounds. We will be struggling with that problem for the next 2,500, 3,000 years. And I can assure you now already, we'll never come up with an answer. When we talk about ethics, what do we mean by ethics? Ethics does not mean simply that which we regard as evil, what we normally refer to as that. All the standards that we have adopted throughout, and that applies specifically to law, is purely relative and subjective. What we here decide we want, that we will adopt as the law, and anybody who violates this law will be penalized accordingly. Anything that we do want, we will adopt it. That's why you have no two countries that have the same legal code. That's why you have not a single country anywhere in the world that has the same legal code today as it had even 50 years ago, never mind 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Some 50, 70 years ago, not in Australia, but certainly in South America and Europe, abortion was a capital offense. Rape was a capital offense. All different kinds. Euthanasia, outright murder. Today, of course, we know how the legal codes in most countries have changed drastically. And then we speak about abortion on demand. They have a nail cut, they have a fetus cut. What's the difference? It's all on the same. Whatever is the product. And since we want this is our norm, these are our likes, the majority goes for this, so therefore that is acceptable. Which means, therefore, this has nothing to do with morality. When we talk about morality, we are talking about absolute values. Absolute values is impossible for the human mind to devise. Because the human mind is subjective, is relative. And in order to have an absolute value system, I need an absolute source. And this is essentially where religion comes in. Religion is not something that we can look at as relative. Yes, we have many different religions. You have a whole supermarket display of different religions, different denominations, and even within each denomination you have subdivisions of your Roman Catholics and Catholics, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Lutherans, Anglicans, you name it. And each one claims, of course, what? That they come from an absolute source. For the religious person, his religious values, his religious laws, are absolute, they are not relative. That's why in every religion you have a concept of martyrdom. That religious people are willing to lay down their life. They say that my physical existence and all my physical possessions means nothing to me, and they challenge my belief. Because religion looks at life is just a temporary abode. You're just passing through a certain stage. As the sages call it, you're going through a corridor, going through a corridor. From we are here now to a ultimate reality, and that ultimate reality, that is eternity. So why should I surrender, try to preserve the 70, 80 biblical years, or 120 years, today with inflation, you can say 180 years, and so forth, for the sake of my eternity? That is what religious law means, because this is absolute. Here there's no bargaining. There's no this discussion about this. So each religion, of course, claims these are my ethical standards. People very often confuse legality with ethics and morality, because our laws, generally, especially in more recent times, are a reflection of our sense of morality. We pass many laws because we feel these should be the moral standards of our society. On, at the very least, the subconscious level, the laws that we pass in society at large are very much influenced by the way we have been raised to believe as to what is right and what is wrong. But do we really have a standard? Do we really have a criterion by means of which to measure what is truly right and what is truly wrong? Just look in business, where you have all these things. Corporate world, I suppose, that's what it means. In business, you have how people conduct business. And in business, it's pretty much law of the jungle. Until the law steps in and says certain practices are legal, certain practices are not legal. And there are lots of loopholes, and sometimes these loopholes are being closed up. Tax laws and others, which somehow the government allows some loopholes until they see, hey, this is taking away too much of the state income, so they close them up. Keep changing it. It keeps adjusting. But here again, it is essentially something which society at large, something that society agrees, that the majority of the population says this is the kind of life that we live. When it comes to religion, here we're dealing with absolutes. Here we're dealing that, never mind what the circumstances are, never mind what this, we are in the 21st century, or we are in the 13th century, or we are in the BCE era, or the common era. If something is good, it is good. If something is bad, it is bad. We've heard it discussed. Religion, of course, has a serious problem. Where do you get it from? How do you know that these are the absolute values? And when we talk about religion, we have to define the word. People very often confuse even the term religion. They say anything that I believe, that becomes my religious system, which of course is not true. You can't, for the term religion, to have any meaning, it must be different than the meaning of what we call philosophy or philosophy of life. Every human being, from the most so-called moral upstanding person to the crudest lowlife that you can imagine, has a philosophy of life. Hedonism is a legitimate philosophy of life. Hedonism is pursuit of pleasure. I'll do anything, Club Med, anything that pleases me, anything that gives me enjoyment, anything that gives me pleasure, is also a standard of life. But you wouldn't call it a religion. What distinguishes religion from something else? Maybe other lifestyle that a person chooses. Without the concept of God, you have no religion. Religion requires kind of philosophy. You don't need a concept of God. But in religion, without the concept of God, you have nothing. It's just, again, my likes, my dislikes, my perception, my perspective, my lifestyle. So when you have a concept of God, then you can start talking about religion. But just because you have a concept of God still does not mean that you have a religion. You can believe in God, you can believe in the existence of God, you can believe in the unity of God, you can believe that God created the world, you can believe that God is the Almighty, etc., and still have no religion whatsoever. In philosophy and theology, there are two concepts. One is called deism, and the other one is called theism. Both words mean exactly the same thing. Except one is from Latin, Deus, and the other one from Greek, Theos. Both mean technically Godism. What's the difference between deism and theism? The deist is a person who claims, of course, God exists. That's all we live in the world, ex nihilo nihil fit, nothing come out of nothing. So there must have been a first cause, there must have been a prime mover, there must have been a source of origin for it, how this world came about, and that's the first cause, that prime mover, that I call God. But just because God exists and because God created the world, does not mean that therefore I have to do anything special. Isn't it possible that perhaps God created the world, and after God created the world, there's a biblical verse which says, Ozach Hashem is ours. God left the world. Moreover, the deist even gives a logical argument that God must have left the world. That God is not concerned, God is not involved in the world. Because after all, it's chutzpahdik, it's presumptuous on your part to think that God cares only about you. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Certainly in relation to God. God by definition is infinite. God by definition is infinite in terms of time, infinite in terms of space, while you're very tiny, finite beings. For example, if Rabbi Herzog would have served you your sandwiches, and you look carefully what is between these bagels, what is in between. It looks like egg salad, it looks like tuna, it looks like this and so forth. The place looks clean, the food looks clean, you believe it. If you would see worms crawling in the middle of the bagel, or some other dirty, filthy insects, would you eat it? Definitely not. Not only that, you would swim, you're never sure if it's this again. I suggest that next time you come here for a luncheon, go out for a minute, bring a microscope. And I promise you, if you bring a microscope and look at all the sandwiches or the cookies or anything here on the table, you'll find lots of dirty, filthy, creeping corners. For that matter, even if you don't eat any food here, you just sit here and you breathe the air of this Chabad house, you are ingesting dirty, filthy, creeping corners, millions of them. And you can see one of them, you vomit and so on, sewer. And it's not something that I reveal to you now as secret. You knew about that before. You never give it a second thought probably. But you know the reality of it. You know all these microscopic creatures all over the place. The argument is, well, in order for me to see them, in order for me to be aware of them on the conscious level, on the empirical level, I would need a microscope that would enhance their size 50,000 times, 100,000 times, a million times. Then I would see them. If I would see them, I'll stop eating. But since I don't use the microscope for these things, so therefore what I don't see don't hurt me. That's simply how it is. But wouldn't exactly the same thing apply with regards to God and his creatures? In relation to God, we are even less than these microscopic creatures. When you talk about 1 to a zillion to the zillionth power, to the zillionth power, to the zillionth power, there's still a relationship between the number 1, or a fraction of 1, and the biggest number that only a computer could possibly come up with. It's infinitely greater, but nearly infinitely greater, but there's a proportion between them. When you talk about infinity and something finite, there's no relationship between them whatsoever. The biggest number in relation to infinity is still 0. Compare that out to 0. So therefore the deists would argue, sure God created the world. Sure God is brought anything into being. But to say that God therefore cares about these things, you don't care about these things which are just 100,000th of your size, 1 millionth of your size, you don't care about that. Why should God care about you when you are so infinitely smaller than God? So therefore for you to think that God cares about you is purely presumptuous, some sheer nonsense. And therefore the deist argues, seemingly quite logical, that there's no relationship between God and the world. Also Hashem is ours. God has forsaken the world. You'll let pretty much come into us. God had his fun, created the world, created a Lego set, made this nice structure, this is a Lego set. The same as you went to the beach, so youngster, you built your sandcastles. Very intricate, complex structures. You had your fun. Supper time, I have to go home. Mommy's waiting for me. What's going to happen to your structure? Tomorrow you come back, it's gone. The water will have washed it away. You shrug your shoulders, I'm doing another one. Why? Must I not say exactly the same things? God's involved in the world. That's the deist position. And obviously that has nothing to do with religion. Religion is not just a concept of God, but religion also would demand that God is a personal God. God is involved with the world. That's the theist position. And the theist position say that God is intricately involved with everything happening here on earth. How they would prove it, okay, that's a different question. Not going into all these philosophical arguments. Now, even if I believe that God exists and God created the world and God is intimately involved with the world, that still does not mean that I have a religion. You have to premise the foundation for religion, but you don't have a religion. Religion is not just simply the affirmation of a belief. Religion means that that belief affects my life. It affects my do's and don'ts. It affects what I can do, what I cannot do, whether I will do it, will not do it, etc., etc. That are consequences, I would say. But how would I know what I should do, what I should not be doing? When we talk about morality, we are talking about guidelines for human conduct, prescribed human conduct. That I cannot have by any philosophical system. The only way I can have that is I have what we call revelation. That if God, I can never figure it out. I cannot know what God wants, what is right and what is wrong. Only God can tell me that. Years ago there was a book that came out, what is it called? They made a big movie out of it, Fatal Attraction. I don't know if you know the term. What is that book and that movie? Fatal Attraction. It tells the story of a man who went out, went to a nightclub, met a girl there, had a one-night stand. Somehow the girl, however, she fell in love with him, or she wanted him, she got obsessed about him. He wasn't interested in that. So she kept pursuing him, and I told the detail, I didn't see the movie. Not saying it for any other reasons. I'm not sorting out either. But whatever it was, she kept pursuing him, etc., etc. When I heard about this book and the theme, I was very fascinated by it. Because it relates to everything that religion is all about. When it comes to religion, we have what I would call the fatal attraction syndrome. There are lots of people who want the religion, they want the in thing, the thing to do. Everybody needs some identity, everybody needs some society to be identified with. And since I want religion, I want to relate to God, but I don't really know how. For that matter, even if I would know, but today we talk a lot about spirituality and something to put our soul on fire, to really grab us. So some people are inspired by this, some people are inspired by that. So some person may suddenly come up and say, for my God, I'm going to build him the most beautiful edifice, the most beautiful temple, and I bring in the best symphony orchestra in the world to sing and bring up for the service, the hymns, whatever it may be. And I'm going to give to God the greatest thing that I could possibly imagine that I regard as the most beautiful and the most inspiring, etc., etc. God, what may say to that? I would say, thank you very much. Very inspiring, very beautiful, very nice, but it doesn't do anything for me. That's not what I'm interested in. Fatal attraction. That girl became obsessed with that boy, with that man. And she felt, this is my soulmate. And in effect, what she said to that man is, since I fall in love with you, therefore you must love me in return. But that man says, you're not my type. I don't care for you. We had a moment of fun, but that's it. I was always interested in it. Why can't God say exactly the same thing? It's very nice of you. Thank you for the compliment that you want to worship me. Thank you for the compliment that you gave me from everything that you have. But that's not what I like. That's not what I expect. The only way that you can have a religion in the sense of doing that which we believe to be God's will is if God himself tells you. And that is the concept of revelation. The concept of that which we shall be observing and celebrating next week is the festival of Shabbos, which commemorates the giving of the Torah. What's the giving of the Torah? Is the very foundation of religion. Without that, there would be no Judaism. Without that, there would be no religion period. God and God alone can tell us what, where, when, how. And if we don't have a concept of revelation, if there's any religion that does not base itself on saying God has revealed himself and spoken to us and given these and those instructions, you have no religion. Regardless how much you bring in to talk about God and this and that and what have you. Now revelation, existence of God, I can give you philosophical arguments. Personal God, I can give you philosophical arguments. The to prove the researchers anymore. Revelation is not the research law. Revelation is either it happened or it did not happen. Revelation is an historical event. Either you were here or you were not there. So it's not that I can devise, surely this must be revelation on the hands. So the only way to say this, were you here today? If you were here today, somebody saw you, you have physical, empirical, historical evidence about the presence here in this room today, then you can talk about you haven't been here. Without that, it doesn't exist, it's not there. It's like in a court of law. You have to give the evidence or the claim about a certain event or certain occurrence that has or has not happened. That is what religion is. God, personal God, revelation. And that is what Judaism is. When we talk about Jewish law, we talk about Jewish law and Torah law. What is Torah law? That we say there was a revelation, I said before, we shall commemorate the event next week, that God revealed himself at Mount Sinai. Not that God spoke to a prophet, like every religion claims. That God speaks to a prophet, to A or B or C, whoever it may be, and then the prophet comes to you and says, God has just spoken to me, he just had a revelation, and here's the message that God gives. I'm sure Melbourne, like in my city in Toronto, as Melbourne with its beautiful office buildings and what have you, we also have other very practical things which are called hospitals, very fancy hospitals, world reputation. And we have different wings for different kinds of patients, for different kinds of whatever. In Toronto, when people come and they say that God has spoken to them, we have the greatest respect for them. We provide them with free room and board. That's a collapse. Until they say God has stopped speaking, which means we look up to them, we support them. And guess what? If you take most of the people that take God speaks to them and you give them a polygraph test, I guarantee you that 90, if not 99%, if not 100%, will pass the test as flying colors. Which means they're telling the truth. Many courts nowadays accept polygraph tests. They're telling the truth. Pass the test. My problem, however, is when I go to room 1, patient A, and they ask him, tell me, what did God tell you? Tell me. Oh, God told me to tell you that next time you worship Him, make sure you stand straight, both feet together, your hands down, and close your eyes and pray this way. Okay, thank you very much. Then I go to room number 2. What did God tell you? God told me to tell you next time you pray, make sure you lie on your tummy. Room number 3, make sure you lie on your back. Room number 4, make sure you make 3 somersaults forward and backwards and forward, and that's how you pray. Which means I get a different message in each room. Isn't that basically what we have in all the different religions in this world? Each one claiming to come from God. Each one coming to have a divine revelation. Each one claiming these are the instructions, this is your way to salvation. And I can score, like before, each one can pass the test, they're telling the truth. What am I going to do with all these conflicting, mutually exclusive claims? I've only 2 alternatives. Accept all of them, because all have exactly equal evidence. And that, of course, is absolutely impossible. You'll really go nuts to do that. How can you go contradict it? Either it's or it's flat. It can't be both. It can't be a square circle. It's a square, it's not a circle. It's a circle, it's not a square. So my only other alternative is to reject all of them. And that is basically how Judaism looks at other religions. I don't have to make derogatory comments about them. I can simply say I have no way of knowing whatever you're talking about. It means nothing to me. If I accept you, why should I not accept him? The problem is missionaries, and you probably have encountered missionaries themselves as well. I've been doing these missionaries for years. And initially I used to take the approach, the historical approach, medieval Judaism, medieval times, and we had to engage in polemical debates. And what the missionaries would do, they would quote this verse and that verse from our Bible and say, opposite this means, this is your Savior, this is how you get salvation, etc., etc. And you could show them it's out of context, and it means this, etc., etc. They would argue, yeah, but there's a deeper meaning, and you have to look at it from a different angle. You could talk your head blue, you're not going to get through. Sometimes you may get an honest missionary who will, at the end of the day, will admit, I see your point, I see where you're coming from, but I have also my point. You have to understand where I come from. So at the least you have 2 parallel paths to it. So I thought it was a waste of time, and I was thinking to myself, there must be a better way. A simpler way. It doesn't get me anywhere. Until I hit upon a very simple device. In the old traditional historical approach, you really have to study the Bible and know the Bible perfectly. You should. Very important. But 99% of people didn't do that and won't do that, etc., etc. So I hit upon a very simple device. So when a missionary now approaches me and asks me, why will you not accept you know who as your savior? Say, you know what? I will let you tell me. I'm not going to tell you why. I will let you give for yourself my answer. Oh, very good. He has a name. I say, can you please tell me, as a Christian, can you please explain to me why you do not accept Muhammad in the Quran? Huh? Muhammad? False prophet. Thank you very much. Quran, satanic verses. Thank you very much. They will give me every argument under the sun why the Christian will reject Islam. And these are exactly my arguments why I reject Christianity. And if it's a Muslim, I'll tell him the same thing. Tell me why you do not accept Buddha or Krishna. Whatever he's going to say about them is exactly what I say about them. It's exactly the same argument. Which means it's a standard. They have nothing to stand on. If you ask me why do I believe in the Torah, I have a different argument. Not because we have Moses, who came and said God spoke to him. That means nothing. That is no different than any other religion claiming the same thing. We have it this one and we have it that one. This was that one. What Judaism is based on is not an act of faith. It's not an act of belief. Every religion is based on an individual coming and claiming that God has spoken to him, and either you believe him or you do not believe him. If he's a charismatic individual and he has a message that really appeals to me, wow, I like that. I follow it. If it goes against my grain, against my upbringing, against my culture, etc., I reject it. But any argument, one argument from one religion is no different than one of the other religions. Judaism is not based on claims. We do not believe in the Torah because of Moses. We believe in Moses because of the Torah. He turned everything literally upside down. How so? That it's not that Moses came and said God spoke to us, which Moses did. He was there in Egypt. And Moses performed lots of miracles. And don't take miracles as signs either. I have no problem accepting every miracle that the New Testament speaks about. Walking on water, the loaves of bread, and the fish, and so forth. Even the resurrection, resurrected dead, I have no problem accepting it all. But I'll simply shrug my shoulders and say, so what? So he resurrected the dead. Can you do it? I can. Therefore, what does that prove? And I'm prepared to accept all the arguments, all the so-called miracles of any other religion that they claim for it. Miracles don't prove a darn thing. Because frankly, between you and me, I don't even know what a miracle is. You can go to a nightclub, for that matter you can look at newspapers, where you have a party, and you can hire what's called magicians. They'll perform all kinds of tricks for you. They'll put 50 feet of rope out of your nose. It doesn't fit into my whole head. How do you get it out of my nose? But I saw it with my eyes. So the art was illusion. I don't know how to do them these days. But I also know that I can go to a store and buy a book which will explain how I can become this kind of magician myself. There are many tricks which they perform which we still do. Houdini, famous illusionist. One of ours, a Jewish boy, vice versa. There are some tricks that he performed. He was a master in illusion that we still don't know how he did them. Is there anyone here who really believes that that is magic? Even if you have no rational explanation for it whatsoever. You say, no, it's illusion, it's like a hand, the hand is quicker than the eye, etc., etc., etc. What is a miracle? At which point do you call it a miracle? It's practically impossible to give a definition. Once upon a time they thought that thunder and lightning are miracles. Today, of course, we know what is thunder and lightning. It's God moving his furniture. Etc., etc. Where do you draw the line? So therefore, miracles do not prove anything. The only thing that can prove that God speaks, if God addresses me, that I know that God has spoken to me. But if I know that God has spoken to me, I can also delude myself. I can imagine schizophrenia, first sign of schizophrenia, hearing of voices. Lots of people hear voices. What is the revelation at Sinai? Revelation at Sinai is, according to our history, according to our tradition, that God revealed himself to the whole nation. That the whole nation was told, informed beforehand, that on this particular day, in that particular place, God will speak to you. Not to me, not to him, not to her, but he will appear before the whole nation. So even if I can be deluded, even if I can have hallucinations and what have you, somebody put something into my coffee, who knows what, It's not my experience. All these 600 to 3,550 people that stood around Mount Sinai, each and every one, without exception, had an identical experience. That is the foundation of Judaism. And therefore, anybody would come and say, well, this and that prophet appeared to me and he said this and that, you should do that. If it conflicts with anything that I know that isn't Torah, I say, I have no choice but to reject it. Not making any valid judgments of this or like that, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the one and only truth. And anybody who does not believe that is he's being inconsistent with this other relationship to reality. How do you determine, in philosophy there's one very serious problem, or the deepest serious problem that exists in mankind, which again philosophers have studied for thousands of years, and will never ever come up with an answer. And that's the problem that's called epistemology. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. How do you know? How do you know anything? What is this? Okay? How do you know? Maybe it's the own accusation playing things on. Maybe it's an optical illusion. All of you have experienced optical illusions. All of you have experienced auditory illusions. How do you know that? So we normally say, well, whatever my eyes or my ears, my senses tell me, that I know is true. But we know that our senses, each one of our senses lies at least part of the time. Whenever we have what's called these optical illusions, we try to find some kind of a scientific explanation. How come this appeared to me as far as my eyes? But it wasn't really there, so how come it appeared that way? On a hot day you drive down the highway, it hasn't rained for weeks, but you look through your windshield, the whole highway looks wet. Right? How is it wet? You step out of the car, it's all dry. You go back in the car, you take a camera, take a picture of the highway in front of you, it's wet. Well, it's an optical illusion, you're looking at the light, the sunshine, etc., etc. We give all kinds of scientific explanations why this illusion comes. Sometimes you see the moon normally this size, other times you can suddenly see the moon this size. Has the moon suddenly changed? It's one of the most famous optical illusions that we can experience actually wherever you are. Depending on the time of the year, the season, depending on the atmospheric conditions, etc., we get this optical illusion where the moon suddenly changes its shape, its size. So we know that we can't trust our senses. So therefore, all these things that just because we see them, and especially this is my perception, doesn't mean anything else. I can elaborate on that all now, but the see time is moving till where we have. A minute ago. Huh? Now a minute. Okay.
We'll continue our...
We'll give precedence to God.
A 10-minute prelude.
The Jewish faith, Jewish revelation, the Torah, about this faith, about how man has to conduct himself. A man has to conduct himself in talk about religious laws, mostly in other religions. It usually relates more so to what we call rituals. Just play. Play is a ritual. There's nothing logical, there's nothing practical, there's nothing from any level from that sort that you should pray, or that you should go and kill it in the morning, or that you should keep Shabbos, etc., etc. Ritual is, in terms of these practical laws, so these are ritual things. Jewish law is different, again, than other religions, that we deal not only, Jewish law is not only deal with rituals. You look in the Torah, we find that, as a matter of fact, most of the laws are not ritual laws, definition of ritual law, but dealing essentially with coping with the world, coping with our human interaction, and so forth. Ten Commandments. Everybody makes a big fuss about the Ten Commandments. I don't know what big fuss is about the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is just 10 out of 613. There's no difference between the Ten Commandments and any of the other commandments. But somehow the only difference is that was revealed at Sinai, so we heard it, so therefore we make a whole series out of the Ten Commandments. But if you look at the Ten Commandments, you see that 6 of them have really nothing to do with ritual. 5th, only your parents. Not just all that, the Russian principle. After engaged me in this world, parents tended to me, they took care of me. I owe them, at the very least, a debt of gratitude. There's a sense of respect and gratitude. Not to murder, not to steal, not to commit adultery, etc., etc. These are basically down-to-earth principles which you find in pretty much any society. Most social codes, most social contracts, most legal codes, basic codes of conduct in any society would incorporate all of these. When we incorporate these, it's not simply because of social efficacy and practicality, but we take these also to be part of our religion. In religion, there's no such thing as something purely ritual between man and God, as opposed to man and his fellow human beings. In Christianity, for example, the New Testament is a statement which says, render unto God what is God's, and unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Meaning they make a distinction between the ritual, the religious, and the worldly things. God is up in heaven, Hashemayim Shemayim Hashem, the heavens are God's, the earth is on the order, and the earth He gave into our hands. This is how people normally look at it. Comes Judaism and says that is totally false. Not only is that totally false, but it's a negation of everything that religion stands for. God is not restricted up to heaven. For that matter, what is the opposite of religion, of Judaism, which we call a monotheistic religion? So you make a distinction between heaven and earth. You no longer have Judaism. That's not monotheism, that's dualism. There are two domains. There's the spiritual and there's the physical, the material. If God is the creator, if God is the source of origin for everything, then everything is divine. There's no difference between the origins of the cookies and these things and the Torah is called in the Holy Earth. For that matter, what is the Torah is called? The Torah is called something physical. Physical parchment, this physical ink, using a physical pen to write it, and that's what it is. And suddenly that same piece of parchment which I could use to write a letter, some social correspondence, the same ink which I could use to draw pictures of that, pornography for that matter, and the same pen again which I could use for these other things. Now by combining these things, what makes this Torah scroll holy? What is the difference between the skin on the animal and the skin on which has been written the Torah scroll, or tefillin, or mezuzah? Comes Judaism says, once you have done it this way and you have produced it this way, this object, this physical object itself becomes holy. And for that matter, that is what religion is all about. Religion is not about worship of God. Simple as that. God is not there and I'm here. Yes, God, I submit to you. You're the ultimate authority. Whatever you say goes, etc., etc. And I'll do whatever you tell me, but I have my own free time. You know, in between services, we come to Mincha. Ma'ariv will be later in the evening. So between Mincha and Ma'ariv, I'm on my own. Ma'ariv, I come back to you. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I can go to work. Shabbos, yes, God, Shabbos, I can do. Like this, comes Torah and says no. Not only says no, but Torah says that religion is proven and is practiced not in the shul, not in the house of worship, not in the ritual acts. That's not where you practice religion. The true proof of what religion is and religious practice is outside the shul, outside the religious context. The Talmud has a statement. There's a parsha Ketana, a very small passage in the Torah, in the Bible, that called Gufet Torah Turim, that all the principles of Torah, whatever God taught us and instructed us, are all contained in that passage. 3 words. Anybody else 3 words?
That's all right.
I figured it was going to say, but it's not. It's a trick question, right? Even though the Kiddush says they call God Torah, that's not it. What are the 3 words? The 3 words is a possible English line. B'chol tochecho zrehu. In all your ways, you shall know Him. Acknowledge Him. What does that mean? It doesn't say, when you go to shul, think of God. When you pray, think of God. When you do a mitzvah, think of God. That's not what it says. It says, B'chol tochecho, in all your ways, in your things, in your activities, in your engagements. What are your engagements? Eating, sleeping, drinking, walking, talking, conducting business. Tochecho. There, do'ehu. There, you have to be conscious of God. In shul is a given. What else am I going to do in shul? Well, you know, Shalom went to shul and he kept talking and yakking away the whole time. Shah! What's the matter with Shah? This is shul. So, says, what do you want me to do in shul? This is shul, come to daven. Daven? Daven I can at home. In shul I come for social activities. You have somebody to talk to at home and nobody else to talk to. So that's why I go to shul. So nobody, we take this perception of, shul, that's, yes, they are go to God. But when I'm in the business, I'm on my own. Corporate world, that's my world. Words no son of the other. The earth, man, God gives man. Comes Torah, comes religion, true religion, any religion. It says, no. It's precisely in the world, in the corporate world, in the business world, in your day-to-day activities, eating, sleeping, drinking, walking, talking, whatever you do. That's where you show your worship. That eating those cookies and eating those donuts and eating those sandwiches is as much a religious act as putting on tefillin. It's as much a religious act as fasting in your kippah. And more so. Fasting, I'm simply going through the motions and the robots. Where I have to particularly to make myself conscious, why do I eat, why do I drink, and why do I conduct this, why do I make money and all that? That's not an end in itself, that's only a means towards an end. It's a necessary means. Without making the money, going to the business and having an income and so forth, I cannot afford to buy food, I cannot afford to do this, I cannot give to the stock even fundamental or comprehensive mitzvah. I need all these things. But all these things have to be placed in context. Have to be placed in context. And that is why so much of the Torah is really dealing more with interhuman action and the physical reality that we have to confront in our day-to-day existence, rather than what we call ritual, religious things. Here's the religious practice. Not in the shul, not in the yeshiva, not here or there. That's what religion is really all about. This is the Parsha Tana, Shekol Gufa Torah, all the fundamentals, all the principles, all the ideas of what the Torah is speaking about are all in those three words. And as these three words are defined, especially by the body, it means pushing all your physical activities, your activities, not God.